Bill Connor, and Ray Langholm. The council will join me off the dais for a special presentation.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming. Perhaps some of you remember that 4 years ago we recognized a 8th grade wrestler from Belmar Elementary. Did very well in grammar school. 4 years later, we're here tonight, and I want to introduce to you the Belmar's first state champion wrestler in Belmar's history, Eric Kossian. Eric, come on up here. Eric, I got some guests, which is great for when you're coming from a small town like Belmar. Coaches appreciate the fact that he learned to wrestle in Belmar, and we have some of your coaches here tonight. We have the starter of the Belmar Youth Club Wrestling Program, where Eric got his start when he was just a young boy. I'd like to introduce to you, Eric, Matt Sharon. Eric, when you were wrestling, you got too big and too strong. Wrestling young kids, we had to bring in some of the coaches. Even though you hurt his back, we have Mr. Nick Skokas. And your grammar school wrestling coach that gave you the term lucky duck, because you always seem to get out of situations. Mike DeRouge. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have the pin. He went into the championship wrestling the undefeated wrestler who was 40-0 and the #1 seed in the 220-pound weight division. And at the end of this video, I'm going to present one of my special awards. Anybody that ever came through the recreation program, I'm giving a special award to Mr. Todd Nicolay. Wrote this myself. It's the non-ESPN Cameraman Award. You will see why. April, this is Eric, this down. Save that video. There is no better award than that. Please give this to your dad's good friend, Todd Nicolay. He'll appreciate it. Explain to him it's a special award. I'd like to read this resolution honoring Eric Kossian. Whereas Eric Kossian won the New Jersey High School Wrestling State Championship in Atlantic City on March 5th, 2017, with a pin in the second period against a previously undefeated and the #1 seed wrestler from Don Bosco Prep. And whereas Eric, as a team captain in his senior year, led his Howell High School wrestling team to both the Shore Conference Championship, and he also led Howell Township to its very first team state championship by winning an amazing 42 matches with just 2 defeats. And you beat those guys later on, right?
Yes.
2 guys? Unfinished business. Whereas Eric first began wrestling in the Belmar Youth Club program and continued to wrestle for Belmar Elementary School, where he won many individual school and county titles. Whereas upon graduation from high school, Eric plans to continue his college education and wrestling career at the United States Military Academy at West Point. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Belmar and the residents of Belmar that we congratulate Eric Kasian for his outstanding high school wrestling career, and we recognize Eric as the very first New Jersey State Wrestling Champion from Belmar.
Well, first off, I'd like to thank my parents for supporting me throughout this whole journey, and my coaches who have helped me get better on and off the mat in life and everything, and have helped me reach this goal, and finally got it.
He's got somewhere to go. All right, Eric. Thanks. Yeah, thank you. Hope your back feels better after wrestling today.
So we have 2 swearings in today for our police department. One is a patrolman, and the second is a promotion from sergeant to lieutenant. So first, I want to call up the gentleman who's going to be sworn into our police department, Corey Whitman. And Corey's dad here is a former state trooper as well, so let's hear it for him. Turn it down. Put your left hand on it. Actually, you know what? I'm sorry, reverse. For the pictures. Oh. I make a motion to appoint Corey Whitman.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Sorry. I got ahead of myself. Please put your left hand on the Bible. Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Corey Whitman,
I, Corey Whitman,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of New Jersey,
of the State of New Jersey,
and I will bear true faith and allegiance
and I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same
to the same
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
in the United States
in the United States
and in this state,
and in this state,
and in the authority of the people,
and the authority of the people,
and I will faithfully,
and I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
and justly perform
all the duties
all the duties
as patrolman of the Belmar Police Department
as patrolman of the Belmar Police Department
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Got it? Just take it.
No. So Corey, we're going to put you on the spot. You want to say a few words to the public that you're going to be serving?
Yeah, I'd like to thank my family, my coworkers for showing up, and my ex-coworkers that showed up too. That showed their support. That's all I got.
Speaking of ex-coworkers, You know, we do have one patrolman from Belmar who transferred to Edison Township. Who showed up here tonight. Great to see you again.
Good evening, Mayor. How are you, sir?
All right, so I'll make a motion to appoint Michael W. Campbell, Lieutenant, Belmar Police Department. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
So it was an honor for me to swear in Mike Campbell as a sergeant, and it's going to be an honor and pleasure to swear him in again as lieutenant. Mike, come on. All right, ready? I, Michael Campbell,
I, Michael Campbell,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of New Jersey,
of the State of New Jersey,
and I will bear true faith and allegiance
and I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same
to the same
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
in the United States
in the United States
and in this state
and in this state,
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people.
I will faithfully, impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
and justly perform
all the duties
all the duties
of Lieutenant of the Belmar Police Department
of Lieutenant of the Belmar Police Department
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
So, let's give her- Our Chief of Police, you guys can say a few words about both the patrolman sworn in and the lieutenant.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Retired Chief Tommy Palmisano, Director Kirschenbaum. I don't know if I missed any other chiefs or directors in the audience. A little bit about Corey Whitman. Corey, actually, he grew up in Wall Township. He spent most of his time in Belmar, I understand. He was a lifeguard until 2011. In 2012, he came to us and was a dispatcher in a Saleo Class 1. In 2014, he was a, 2014, he was a Saleo Class 2 and a dispatcher of Wall Township PD. In 2015, he was hired in Wall Township as a patrolman, but apparently he always wanted to come back to Belmar. He has a family of law enforcement. His brother Craig, right? Craig started with us at Belmar as well, and is currently a Wall Township police officer. His father, a retired state trooper. His mother is in education for her whole career, I believe, which is ironic because Mrs. Campbell, the same thing, education. So apparently that's where it starts, is education. Michael Campbell started 2003. He graduated the Burlington County Police Academy. He served in capacity patrolman, detective sergeant. He's worked with the state police narcotics on many stings from 2010 to 2011, and it's my honor to take Corey as a patrolman and Mike Campbell as a lieutenant. Thank you.
You serve.
I'd like to first thank the Mayor, Council, Administrator, my Chief, and Kurt Administration. Thank you for the kind words, Chief. I look forward to serving the town I grew up in. I went to St. Rose K-12. My home is Belmar. My family still resides here. I look forward to the opportunity to serve at a higher capacity. Thank you.
Before we let everyone go, if everyone in the public could just join me, we really do have an outstanding police department here in Belmar. I'm blessed as a mayor to have such incredible partners. So please give them all a very warm get back to work, and we'll leave a little time for whoever would like to head out. So thank you all very much.
What a bunch of malarkey.
So he said after the after a while he'd take off the spring cleaning. Shovel ready. Pretty proud of someone that's not big enough. Definitely take up that retail space.
I didn't eat that many. Yeah, and I only did like a handful. So, whatever you grab.
All right. Back to our regularly scheduled broadcast. So next on our agenda is workshop discussion. The only way we have for workshop discussion right now is the artificial turf. We discussed this at our last council meeting, and our attorney has drafted an ordinance, not for first reading today. We can do a first reading at our next council meeting. But if Greg could sort of explain the draft ordinance that he's proposed for the council to consider.
Sure, taking direction from our discussion from the last council meeting and feedback from the public that we received, I put together a draft ordinance here. It's not terribly lengthy, it's pretty simple. It covers the basic areas, the zones in which the artificial turf will be prohibited, which is essentially everything except for single-family residential districts. The locations where the turf would be permitted is on single-family attached or single-family attached dwellings in the R zones, and that it would be prohibited in any front yard or side yard visible from the street. So it will be available in the side yards not visible from the street and in the backyard. And then there are requirements as to the specifications of the turf itself. As you can see in section C, it's basically describes a lot of the stuff the gentleman from the turf company described last time. It's the materials, the cut in fill, it's got to be cleaned, washed fill. There's a buffer of 1 feet between the artificial turf and the impervious surface to prevent potential issues or potential rough edges on areas that can be a danger to the public. The installation basically goes to the same thing. It has to be anchored at all the edges and seams. It can't be installed on slopes greater than 60%. Obviously, that can be a potential sliding issue. And the general appearance. Now, I've generally outlined this, and you can see it's not terribly lengthy. I've outlined this in the areas that the council may want to think about specifically requiring things. I mean, there's some ordinances from some places I found that regulate everything from the grass length to what angle it stands at to the width. That I didn't find it prudent to do that at this juncture. But you can see the areas, especially if you look at section C5, which is the general appearance. Green color, artificial turf product, they'll have an 8-year warranty, things like that. If you would like to regulate or if you get feedback from the public, I know the public's been very interested in this. I'm sure that you guys have had a lot of feedback. You know, if you want to incorporate things that you've heard or what have you, that can certainly be brought into a more specific area. One of the specific concerns that you guys had at the original meeting, and I think what prompted this entire conversation to begin with, was not so much the expensive, high-quality product, but the carpeting or the outdoor indoor carpeting, and that's addressed in section C1, or C1C, which is the use of outdoor carpeting in lieu of artificial turf, mulch, or other plant material is not permitted. So that direction, that specific issue that you guys were talking about. Moving to section D of the to section, the last page, which is C6, is maintenance. That's basically you have to keep it clean. It's got to be all down to the ground. Has to look appropriate. D, which I think will address many of the concerns that a lot of residents already have artificial turf on their lawns and spend a lot of money on it. Although we believe their grandfather given it permitting to begin with. This expressly makes clear that all installations of artificial turf on properties within the borough existing as of the effective date of this ordinance are not subject to the regulations contained in A, B, C2, C3, or C4, which A and B is that they would have to rip it up, redo the substrate, things like that. However, they would be subject to 1, 5, and 6 under section C, which is the general appearance, the maintenance, and the materials, because the materials is an important environmental issue, as well as that includes the carpeting. And then we've discussed before, a lot of what this does is it meshes with the impervious cover in the other portion of your zoning ordinance, so that, you know, generally the types of products that generally put on the table here are acceptable under this, but the really, you know, outdoor carpeting stuff is out regardless of whether it's installed now or not. But the people that spend a lot of money on it are kind of taken care expressly grandfathered, and they're not subject to rip it up and redo it or anything like that. And then E, you have to have a permit for any new artificial turf or the replacement of existing artificial turf on any property in the borough subsequent to the effective date of the ordinance. So that will give you the ability to control it going forward into the future, which I think was the principal concern of the council, and people kind of seeing it and then people kind of doing it halfway there in other places and seeing kind of costly, not doing it the proper way. There's the evidence to me that a lot of people that came here last meeting and thought it the right way and they cared about what it looks like. We don't want that to spread into another area. I think that was your concern. So I'll address that with this, and take a couple weeks. We'll have a couple weeks between now the next meeting. Obviously, start a chain email as you've read the normal rules, but you can email me with your suggestions or things you've heard from residents, and we can incorporate it, and we can have something for introduction for the next meeting.
So real fast, just to take some of your spoke and put it into simpler language that people like myself can understand. So moving forward, you would only be permitted to install the artificial grass in the backyard, out of sight from the curb line, outside of the street. But if you already have it there, you're grandfathered in.
Correct. And you would be able to install it to the side yard, not visible from the street. So a corner lot would be able to maybe put it depends on individual circumstances of the property. It's defined as visible from the right of way of public street.
Gotcha. And again, in this, you took the specs from the gentleman who was here, incorporated it as far as what is permitted is going to be a quality product as opposed to the indoor-outdoor carpet.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we can get more specific with it, and that was the point. I didn't find it prudent to really bring you guys down to microcosms and then try to build back up. This is kind of a top-down picture. If there's something that you're concerned with the way it sits or fits, or you guys have heard a lot more about it. Luckily, people don't have live cell phone on me. So, you guys have heard a lot more about it than I have. Maybe there is some, other things that can go in here. I basically put the general, if you go to section C1, and 1, 2, and 3, those are the basic kind of parameters of how you install it, what it's made of, things like that. If there's things that you saw that you like in the materials I handed out last week, or you hear from someone, let me know. We can certainly incorporate it and become more specific, but this is more general, gives a little more flexibility. If you'd like to constrain it a little further than that, it's certainly acceptable.
Any questions from the council for Mr. Gannon?
No. Just a question. We're not permitting it in the front yard. What's to prevent someone who wants to put it in the front yard because their neighbor has it in the front yard coming and challenging this?
Anyone can challenge anything they like, but this is set up with clear delineation, in fact, the date of the ordinance. So, how it's unfair if people are grandfathered in, it's unfair to rip out the existing installations. This going forward, you have the power to regulate this.
Will the company that installs it argue that we're restricting their trade at all by not allowing it in the front yard? Let's say someone doesn't want it in their backyard, they want it in their front yard.
Someone could make that argument. I think the speeches, I'm not sure it would hold up in court. Your development ordinance and regulations have brought numerous provisions that regulate landscaping and planting of trees upon developments and various capacities and various developments when you knock down new development. It's certainly within your zoning power to regulate landscaping and this falls under landscaping.
So we do have other regulations in other ordinances telling people what they can and cannot put in their front yard besides these artificial turf. In other words, let's say you can't have like a 6-foot fence in your front yard.
Exactly correct. Exactly.
So in other words, it's not the first time we're doing this. There are other things that people want that are not allowed, correct?
Absolutely. There's a 20-page long chapter in your zoning regulations, chapter 40, that deal with all those sorts of issues, setbacks, everything you think of when you think of zoning.
And we didn't have this in our original ordinance 10, 15 years ago because why?
I couldn't speak to that. I mean, I don't know why the borough didn't choose to. Appears from the experience that you guys have had, is this is something that has kind of cropped up over the years and more recently. I imagine that a lot of the construction and all the work that's gone on here after Hurricane Sandy has spurred people to look at innovative ways to solve their property solutions and gave a lot of people a clean slate in some regards. So I imagine that's why this is come up now a few years ago. That's really my speculation. You know better than me.
Well, I don't think anyone ever thought 10, 15 years ago to put artificial turf on their front lawn, which is probably why it wasn't originally in the ordinance.
I think, I talk about the sand issue. The other thing is this has become, as you saw from the Joseph provided last time, extremely popular out west where you're not allowed to water your lawn anymore. Like for a number of years, up until very recently, we had a very sustained drought. So, companies, a market is created out west, and once you satisfy that need, of course, DuPont, all these large companies that make this product are looking for another market for it. And beachside communities, I guess, is probably the next lowest hanging fruit after drought-stricken areas. So I imagine that's why this kind of all comes to fruition now.
Thank you, Greg.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
I have some. I want to say, I really appreciate all the work you put in here. I think you've really covered my two main concerns. And since the beginning of the discussion, my two main concerns have been, permeability as far as stormwater runoff and appearance. And I think you've covered it. We would not allow anything that wasn't up to snuff as far as the installation. We want to make sure it was all permeable. That being said, I mean, if they're doing all that, I appreciate all the comments and the correspondence from the public, and I think a lot of people have made some really strong impressions on me. If they're meeting these guidelines for permeability and for appearance, why can't they just put it in the front yard? Why can't they just put it anywhere? I mean, we let people put stone in the front yard, and we even have places in town where, our ordinance definitely says it's supposed to be stopped between the sidewalk and the curb, and there are properties. I took a 10-minute ride around before I got here. I saw 6 different properties that had stone, and some that have obviously put a lot of money and thought into landscaping that stone. We let that go. That's not producing any oxygen, neither is this. So, but that's not an issue. That's not an issue. I think if people are going to take the time and spend the money to take care of their property and do the right thing and meet our codes and make sure they get the permits, they ought to be able to put it in. It's their property. I don't think it looks bad. So I don't see the point of prohibiting, restricting people putting in their backyard and not on the front or on the side. What's the point of that?
We own the property, but we don't own the world. Other animals, other than humans, need natural turf. Who's to say that we have the right to put artificial stuff over our property in the front and the back and tell any animals that use it, you can't eat here, you can't grow here.
I appreciate your passion, but honestly, I think it's their property. There are other ways, there are other environmental benefits of using artificial turf. It's not all detriments. I think Mr. Cannon makes a good point, and it actually occurred to me why it was so popular out west. And believe me, that water issue, we're going to have the same kind of thing over here. Maybe our problem might be too much water, I just don't see the point of restricting it just to the backyard. If they're going to meet requirements of appearance and permeability, and we let other things go, why not just let this go too? I don't see why we're just sticking our nose in and regulating nuisance. I just don't see the point. I don't think that's really our place.
I really agree with Councilman Brennan. I looked at the properties that have it. They keep the properties nice and neat. Maybe the ordinance we need, because as people get the artificial turf, so that we have the ordinance in place that they have to keep up on it and make sure it's maintained and all the things that you need to keep it maintained, which you did a great job putting it in the ordinance. But I agree with Councilman Brennan, if we're gonna allow it, the people that have done it really they keep the property immaculate, and I think we should just allow
in the front yard also.
I'm torn. I definitely want to read this front to back a little bit more thorough. I think if I imagine a very drastic hypothetical and imagine 90–95% of the town, 80–85% with artificial, I don't like that appearance. I think if you know, I like that it's warm in the winter. I like that it's natural. So I definitely need to think this one over. I understand your point.
Well, you don't have to worry about me, I'm never gonna put it. I take my war with the grubs, it's a personal grudge match. I'm telling you, I'm not giving up on that.
And I think this time of year,
Absolutely.
this time of year too, you know, driving around, I looked at all the properties and they're next to properties that, you know, are going through winter right now or cold. So, you know, their lawns aren't that green, they're brown, they've got patches. So it's very drastic and contrasting. But yeah, I would not want a town that has the majority of lawns artificial, which we would have no control over after this. So yeah, think about it.
All right, anything else on this? If not, we'll, I was gonna ask, along the same lines, if Mr. Cannon can talk about a letter that was sent out to individuals that have this from our building inspector.
Code inspector sent out letters to individuals who have the turf on their lawn.
And I hate to lose you, but if you can speak loud.
I'm sorry, I don't have a microphone, I don't have a mic, I
You can
apologize.
project, come on.
The code inspector sent out a letter to everyone who has the artificial turf at this juncture, indicating that enforcement action will be taken under existing zoning regulations. The initial meeting, we were under the misperception that the turf was impervious, if you recall, and we were acting under that pretense. So now, once we were educated, the second time we discussed this, you know, those letters will not be followed up on with any enforcement action until you guys figure out what exactly, the questions you're talking about are really policy oriented. I can write it, I don't want to say virtually any way you'd like, but with the stuff that you're talking about, I can slide the scales one way or another on here. Front yards, backyards, length, width, of blades, where they stand up at an angle, all that sort of stuff is certainly within your regulatory power. What you won't do on policy-wise is up to the council as a whole, as a majority. So with respect to that lettering, when we got that letter, it was here, the code inspector will not be following up on that, taking enforcement action, given that council was educated further about the issue and intends to understand it more now. And, you know, I believe that they'll be following up with the clerk will figure that out.
Do you know if the individuals or the families that received those letters have been informed of the kind of pending, or?
No, we'll send
I'm sure they're.
Yeah, I think we'll follow up with them. You know, it was, I should be clear, no summonses have been issued, no enforcement actions have been taken against them, there's been no order to rip up the lawns or what have you, but, you know, people got a letter in the mail, so, but we were under a little bit of a misperception about the impervious crisis, so we should probably follow up on that and take care of that. I don't recommend any enforcement action being taken based upon our initial discussions in that letter.
Okay. Just curious, do you know what surrounding towns do?
There are, in New Jersey, there are, to be honest with you, I could not find, that doesn't mean they don't exist, but I could not find any artificial turf ordinances. And I started searching all around LBI, figuring that was there, and they regulate a lot of the landscape rock and stuff like that. But I couldn't find an issue. I really had to go out west into Florida to find kind of model ordinances and gather those. You saw the materials that I gave you were mostly from California, Colorado, and Florida. There's not a lot of regulation in this area in New Jersey. The municipalities didn't have any resources on it. You know, I certainly learned a lot from the process, that's for sure. I got some good mail from residents who sent me a Sacramento Planning Commission study on it. You know, it's really been a good thing to kind of gather information on it. It's not something that's really been addressed at length in New Jersey.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for workshop from the council? Next, I'll look for petitions. Any petitions for the mayor and council? I don't see any. Next, approval of the minutes.
Okay, I move that the minutes of the regular meeting held on March 7th, 2017 be approved as reported and that a copy thereof be posted on the borough's website.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No.
Well, she was-
Oh,
Next are reports of the council. Council President Brian McGovern.
I will start. Last Monday, at the planning board, unanimously approved 2 projects. One at 500 Fifth Avenue, which should begin in this fall. They'll start building this fall. And another project at 707 10th Avenue also is approved unanimously, but that project's not going to start for another 2 or 3 years. If you're here at the start, we recognize Eric Cossian, the state champion, but I'd also like to mention that another resident, Dara Mabry, was just received the Gatorade Player of the Year, which means she is the best female basketball player in the state of New Jersey. It's the 3rd time in short conference that anyone received the Gatorade Award, and all the names end in Mabry. Michaela, Marina. And Dara's only a junior, yes. Just want to announce that if you've been coming to the tourism meetings on Monday because you've been reading the Coast-Star, the Coast-Star publishes it wrong. The tourism meetings are not on Mondays. They've been notified several times by our tourism director, Mary Brabazon, but for whatever reason, Coast-Star editor or publisher refuses to change the date or correct it. So there is no tourism meetings on Monday. I wish the Coast-Star would change that. And that's basically my report.
Thank you. Councilman Walser.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Brennan and myself had a Harbor Commission meeting last night. One of the main topics of conversation were the docks that have been removed for the sailing program. And they were wondering if we could start the permit process to maintain those docks back. I spoke to Colleen today, our business administrator, and I suggested to her that I think we should probably, at our next meeting, have the engineer there to explain the process for that, because I know it's a lengthy process, and maybe some alternatives of what we could do that would be a little bit quicker. I know we talked about some of the docks being portable that you could take out during the winter time, and I don't know if that would, DOT would approve that or not, but maybe the engineer would be able to.
That's a good question, because DEP's big concern on any item that is by the water is whether or not it's permanent or temporary. So Ninth Avenue Pier has those trailers, which if they left there, no one would care. But DEP makes them move that because technically they have to be temporary. So if they could come up with docks or
Portable docks.
some type of floating platform, right, that you could take out in the winter. That makes a lot of sense. I don't know what the expense would be or if it's plausible. But that's why DEP has a hankering for things that they consider permanent.
Yeah. So I think our engineer would be able to explain it a little bit better. So I asked Colleen if he can be at the next meeting and maybe shed some light on that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that was a very productive meeting with the Harbor Commission last night. I'm glad we had that. We rescheduled because we canceled because it rained. We couldn't shovel the rain fast enough to come to the meeting.
You had a day off school for that, right?
Yeah, I did. Nothing like a snow day with no snow. Anyway, so the Environmental Commission met last Thursday. One of the big things, we're still looking into our native plantings. I'm working with Colleen Conley. I'm going to start looking for growers that can find us. We've identified the plants we want to plant down there by the beach, the native plant species. But we have to find, basically we have to find some growers that have them. And it turns out they're not as common as gladiolas, I guess. So we have to find some, we're going to work on that. One of the big things the Environmental Commission is working on is renewing our Sustainable New Jersey status. That makes us eligible for grants. Actually, it would have made us eligible for grants for some of this planting that we want to do down there. But the fact that we're doing that, it gets us points. And Sustainable New Jersey is like a lot of environmental and sustainability things. You get a checklist, you get points for things, you get enough points, then you have to have all your paperwork covered, you submit it, and then you get this designation. You have to renew periodically, but basically it's a matter of housekeeping once you get that set up. One of the things that we need, according to the state of New Jersey, is we need something called a green team enacted by either resolution or ordinance. And I believe we actually have one already. We have to find out. Janice McKeown-Blackburn, who's newly appointed to the Environmental Commission, she's taking point on this. So I know she's going to be in touch with Colin Connolly about finding exactly what our status is. The green team is not necessarily made up of council members, it's made up of community members, and they have a profile of the kind of people you want to have on it. You want to have first responders, you want to have business people, you want to have artists, things like this, people like this that are involved in, sustainability isn't just environmental responsibility, it's things like making sure kids have places to play, and people have places to recreate, and making sure that there's enough open space and light and air, and that business can thrive. The whole idea, that's a sustainable community. I mean, that's what they're looking for. So we're definitely looking hard to get that done. And those are really the two things that are going on there. One thing I want to recommend to everybody is the Environmental Commission has a Facebook page. I'm one of the contributors. It's called Belmar-Eco-Watch. If those of you who remember the old Eco Watch that used to come with your water bill. This is the new thing. If you're on Facebook, you can like the Belmar Eco Watch page. It's a lot of great information. The night that Mike Campbell told us that there's no such thing as flushable wipes, we put that right up there. That was easy. It's great. And we put up the content usually once or twice a week. We put up stuff about the movie cars and the snowstorm and preparing for it, different things like that. Chairman Steve Wolfer and I and one other member, Ed Livingcott, are posting stuff to this page. So, like the Belmar Eco Watch. That's it for me.
Thank you. Councilwoman Nicolai.
I don't have much with the recreation. They're doing softball and baseball right now, so if you have children in grade school that want to play, please contact Borough Hall. The gentleman running is Anthony Latesta. They got a good group, but they can certainly use some more. So again, softball and baseball for kids first grade through 8th. Belmar Art Center, please, they always have shows going on. There's a great one now if you can swing by. And what else? I think that is it. Happy Spring. Oh, and Strollo's is open. Most important takeaway.
Thank you. I want to reiterate what Council President McGovern said about the 5th Avenue, or Main and 5th, and also the 10th Avenue projects. These are two really important projects in our town. It brings, I think when you combine both of them, there's over 80 residential units. And it's something that we need. Between 2000 and 2010, we dropped in population pretty significantly, and we're down now. So these are the type of projects that bring people to town to live here on a more year-round basis, support our central business district, and the town I want to live in. Only other thing I had, I'd like to call this my brilliant idea. I shared this already with a couple members of the council, not everybody. The Friendly Sons of the Shillelagh Club, going to be reopening, brand new building. They're going to have a second floor, ADA compliant, has a bar, has a large area. I'm going to make a suggestion. I think we should take our council meetings to the Shillelagh Club moving forward. A couple libations for the folks in the audience. Not for the council until the meeting's over. I'm not sure if that's legal. We'll do significant research on it to make sure.
I'll shake it to them.
Bill Northgrave said, everything's legal until someone challenges it.
I'll second that.
That's all for me. We're already at 7 o'clock almost, so I'll keep my report short. So that's it for council reports. Next is public session on the resolution calendar. So there's open for public comment just on the resolution calendar. Anyone wish to make a comment, question on it, please raise your hand. When you call out, get the microphone, state name, address, for record, and whatever you'd like to talk about. About hands from Mark. Seeing none, I'll close the public comment section, public session for the resolution calendar.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. Next, I'll turn the dais over to Councilman McGovern.
Thank you, thank you. The first resolution, I move for the authorization, payment of bills. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Brennan?
Yes.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Councilman Walsifer?
Yes.
Councilman McGovern?
Yes. Next, we have a resolution awarding a lease agreement for Zumba. Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Councilman Walsifer?
Yes.
Councilman McGovern?
Yes. Next, we have a resolution awarding a lease agreement for the 10th Avenue Pavilion concession. Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Councilman Walsifer?
Yes.
Councilman McGovern?
Yes. April, should I skip down to the last one?
Fifth Avenue.
I skipped that, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, the resolution awarding a lease agreement for the 5th Avenue Pavilion concession. Do I have a second?
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Councilman Walsifer?
Yes.
Councilman McGovern?
Yes. And then I will skip down to the final one.
I will recuse myself.
The resolution authorizing the Borough of Belmar to modify the shared service agreement with the Borough of Spring Lake for tax collector services. Do I have a second?
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Councilman Walsifer?
Yes.
Councilman McGovern?
Yes. Tom, you gotta come back up. And Councilwoman Nicolay will take this one. Musical.
I will move the resolution authorizing contract purchase of park and playground equipment. Do I have a second?
I'm second.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Councilman Walsifer?
Yes.
Next is the consent agenda. I'll offer the consent agenda.
Second?
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Mayor Nardi?
Yes.
Councilman Walsifer?
Yes.
Councilman McGovern?
Yes.
Next ordinance is 2017-8, 2017-9, and I will turn it back over to Councilman Mayor.
Okay. This is second reading and public hearing for ordinance 2017-8. This is the ordinance of the Borough of Belmar, County of Monmouth, New Jersey, authorizing the execution of a financial agreement with 500 Main Street Partners Urban Renewal, LLC. Does anyone, please, if you want to speak on this, please come up to the microphone. State your name.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Okay, do I have a motion to open the public portion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. So is there anybody in the audience who wants to come up and speak about the ordinance 2017-2018? I move that we close the public portion. Do I have a second?
All in favor?
Aye. Again, do I, public portion, open it up for public, or that's already covered?
Take a vote on that ordinance, and then we'll open the
Okay.
You need a
No, I
second?
need a motion to adopt the ordinance.
I make a motion to adopt ordinance 2017-8. Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Councilman Walsifer?
Yes.
Councilman McGovern?
Yes. Now, for ordinance 2017-9, ordinance of the Borough of Belmar, County of Monmouth, New Jersey, authorizing the execution of a financial agreement with 707 10th Avenue Urban Renewal LLC. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to come up and speak?
Public comment.
So that's not covered with the first one? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I make a motion to open this up for public discussion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Anybody in the audience? Seeing none, I make a motion to close the public portion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Now, I make a motion to adopt ordinance 2017-9. Do I have a second? Second.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Councilman Montgomery?
Yes.
Thank you, Council President. Next is public session. Public session is very simple. Ms. Northgrave come tonight. Appreciate all your comments. Public session is very simple. Raise your hand when you be called on. Come up to the microphone. State your name and address for the record. And you have 5 minutes. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Ed Monty, 117 19th Avenue. I'm here for the turf situation. Once again, so far, I'm pretty satisfied with the outcome was, and I want to thank the Council Wasper and Brennan for, using their fair assessment on what we have and what we did. But I must tell you, I'm smart enough to know when to stand down. And this may be the point, but I would be remiss if I told you that this whole procedure was kind of handled wrong. In my estimation, it put a lot of people at risk. Okay, I came down here with a lot of information. So much so, I have pictures of 82 homes that were in violation of the ordinance that you tried to enact with the first strip. There's 15 homes that are still boarded up since Sandy. And it's like 42 houses that are up for sale in town. That's my assessment. Okay, moving forward, and once again, I thank you for it, but are we gonna get something in writing that we're gonna be grandfathered for this?
It's, well, it depends on the form of the ordinance that the council provides, but the current ordinance has a specific, expressly grandfathers you.
And how far back is this ordinance going to go? Is it gonna be valid from the day that it's adopted? Or is the ordinance gonna go back further? Is it specifically the language?
I think the date it's adopted. So let's say it gets adopted the first meeting in May.
Well, it doesn't get effective 20 days thereafter.
20 days after that, it goes into effect. So as long as you have whatever is there prior to that, so let's say it's, I'm going to pull it out, May 25th of 2017. If it's installed before that, then your grandfather in.
I'm 6 years.
Right, and I'll be honest with you, I stopped by your house, right, Councilman Nick and I went there. We trespassed on your lawn.
That's fine.
And,
I appreciate you doing that.
no, well, I appreciate you being a gentleman and encouraging us to do it, and, yeah, it made sense, so.
Look, you can see the area I'm in with all rentals. I try to make my property as aesthetically nice as possible for my family and for everybody else in the area. I have a lot of pride in where I live. So that's the main reason. Okay, and getting to the area of having animals feed, yes, just not on my lawn. Because when you have these swans coming from the lake and feeding on my front lawn, it's very nice for some people, but it isn't for me. Especially when my kids have to walk through all the fecal matter.
I would say that you're ahead, so you said maybe.
Just to satisfy, if I may, here's Yacht's report on the grass.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes, ma'am. Good treat.
Hello, Mayor and Council, Lee Kelsey O'Donnell. I reside at 604 Fifth Avenue in Belmar. As you may know, I've been here for about 20 years at that property. I've lived with my family there in town my entire life. My father, Kevin O'Donnell, Nancy O'Donnell, probably some of you know them. As some of you also may know, my home is adjacent to the Seaport Inlet Marina, which caught on fire on February 14th, and that's the basis for my concern here. I know that at last council meeting there were some updates and recommendations that were provided by Mayor and Council as far as the owner of the marina and what he plan to do with safety measures. And I also know that there was an April 1st deadline for the implementation of some of those safety measures, and I'm wondering if you can provide any updates.
Well, the April 1st deadline is for him to remediate things that are out of compliance. So he had a structure adjacent to the main building on the lot. He had to take that down by April 1st. When we talked about the safety improvements, whether it's the sprinkler system or the fire hydrants, we don't necessarily have a set deadline for that yet. And I'll be honest with you, he did reach out to me last week. I was not available to meet with him. So we're still progressing in the right direction with that. The delay is more on my end than on his. But with the April 1 deadline, that's a hard and fast deadline, whether or not he needs it or not. He has to address certain things for fire code, like the structure.
And while I do understand that there may not be a hard and fast deadline for the recommendations, some of those recommendations are continued non-compliance with fire code and with zoning ordinances. And while I'm understanding that there's a lot to be done, my concerns lie also with who's overseeing that and what entities, what people, what individuals. I mean, I'm a little scared for my house, not gonna lie. It was a little bit of a close call. And I can tell you I can see into the boatyard every day when I wake up and all throughout my house, and it's not pretty. So I'm just wondering who's responsible now for overseeing this for April 1st or thereafter.
Well, what our goal is to come to an agreement with him, and there will have to be a set date by which it has to get done, because you can't go on in perpetuity. And we may end up, I'm not sure if we're going to put in some type of an ordinance as well, so it'll have the strength of law. But ultimately, it'll be the building inspector, code, fire official. So for instance, he's going to have fire extinguishers there. It can't be the same one that I have in my basement. It's got to be like a super duper one that can put out a gas fire. So there's different regulations on marine fire extinguishers than one in Matt Doherty's house. So you know, when it comes to that, that's the fire official who we appointed today. In the middle of this, we had one fire official, fire marshal leave, and now we just appointed one today. So, but someone will absolutely be responsible for ensuring that he meets the April 1 deadline. And then after that, the proactive measures going forward, we're going to put a time frame on that. Once we have it, we'll let you guys know. And then someone will be in charge of ensuring that he meets those deadlines as well.
Someone.
It'll be a combination of the fire official for fire stuff, and you know, it'll probably be the zoning official, because one of the other challenges we have or concerns we have is how close the boats are to the property line. That's not necessarily a fire issue, but so in other words, it's not one person. It's going to be multiple people who are all either code, fire, or building officials.
And it's going to be in conjunction with any sort of other state entities, or is it just going to rest solely within the borough of Belmar to enforce these
It'll all be in
provisions?
the borough of Belmar.
What's that?
It'll all be in the borough of Belmar. The only non-Belmar entity that really is involved at all is DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, for some of the fluids, particularly what may have happened to the shark river. That's it.
Thank you.
Any comments, questions? Yes, sir.
Real quick. Record dates, 413 13th Avenue. I'd like to say two things. Is it possible to get a copy of the proposed ordinance so we can go over it, owners?
I will tell you that we do have a few, but we have a limited amount at this meeting. So if we give them out, we may not be able to give them out to everyone. So, oh, can you email it? Do you have the other folks' email addresses as well? Well, if anyone wants a copy of it, leave your email address with April, and she will send it to you.
The other thing is workshops. Do you ever invite the public to be part of the workshop? The reason why I'm asking is that this workshop is for the artificial turf seem to go immediately to how do we ban it, instead of looking for real research, real knowledge of the product and how it affects the environment. The way I feel it, if it's allowed, I really don't know, but the way I feel it, since there was only 9 of us in the town, residential, that had artificial turf, that maybe 1 or 2 of us could have been part of that, and we could have given you a lot of information right up front, and be a research arm, for your workshop. I'm grateful for tonight's meeting.
Sure.
It's just a thought.
Right, and that's a great, and it may be somewhat misleading. When we say workshop, it's just the council, and it's usually just the council,
Right.
unless there's something, a developer presenting a proposed project, but there is no public input.
Right, okay.
But it's not, the idea is that the council's here meeting and speaking in front of you about something in a transparent way, as opposed to doing it behind closed doors, and then coming out and, they're gonna be any topic for discussion. That's why there's always a public portion at the end, and before any ordinances are passed, there's always a public portion. Before there's ever a resolution passed, there's always an opportunity for public comment. But I think that, I think we showed tonight that we did take a lot of the public input.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I did not find your house, I forgot your address, so I apologize. So I was trampling on the lawns on 19th Avenue instead of 13th Avenue. And I mean, this is the way the process works. I will tell you, and you're probably gonna laugh, but right now, if someone wanted to put blue artificial turf on their front lawn, there's no regulation against that. So that's, and I'm not saying you're gonna do that. And again, I haven't seen the property, but I take your word for it. You're an absolute gentleman. I'm sure yours looks pristine. So I think there is good public input. I understand that it did cause some angst. That was never our intention. But things, I believe, need to be done in a very transparent, open, and public way. And that's how I think we handled this pretty well.
I don't think any of us were against any regulation. I mean, obviously, you don't want silver like fake Christmas trees when they first came out. I understand that. But,
remember those?
Yeah. I'm older than you. But I want to thank you again. And
my pleasure. Like I said, you've been such a gentleman. We appreciate it.
yeah, thanks.
Yes, George.
George, I'm House 111 3rd Avenue. I hardly ever come up here. First, it was just a good day because Eric Cossian, to see a little kid get a state championship.
Little kid is 220 pounds.
Well, I can still kick his butt.
Yeah, wake up, George. Come on.
And then the other officers that were hired today, you guys, the cops, I remember take a picture of Mark Walsberg became a police officer. Was that 86, sir? Or 85?
Long time ago.
Okay, it shows you my brain's fading, but
Black and white TV.
a lot of people don't know, because especially first aid calls, they help a lot on fire, but I cannot tell you how many lives they save. It's gotta be 20 or 30 lives, it's just, they're incredible, helping us lift patients, because I'm older now, and they're just so respectful, and a lot of them have their EMTs, they're just great human beings.
No worries, George. Thank you very much. I agree 100%. They're the first ones literally on the front lines. The fire is volunteer, EMTs are volunteer, but the police are 24/7, 365, and they're the first ones to show up to anything. So yeah, I agree.
Tom Billberger, 1000 River Road. I have a criticism, but first I'd like to just mention a little history. In 1665, 66, the plague hit London. Approximately 100,000 people died, 1 out of 4. People walking down the street and then mid-stride fell over dead. Nobody saw you coming in or out of your house in a week. They went in and found the whole family dead and everything. That would be an emergency. Would you agree?
Did you live through this?
Would you agree, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay.
I'm agreeing with you tonight, Tom.
Very good. We've established that. Now, fast forward to now. A week ago, we had a report of a storm gonna hit and everything. You alerted the town, red alert, and went on about blah, 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 park your car, it's gonna be cold, we'll have some wind and snow. Now, in comparison of the two emergencies, which one would you think was more of an emergency? The first one I just mentioned, or the second?
Just real class, so you're asking me to compare nor'easter
Right,
to
yeah.
black plain?
Exactly. Now, the thing is, Mr. Mayor, we don't need these things. All it does is agitate the people and get them upset. They've got TVs, they've got radios, they've got computers. They don't need you adding to it. This is a bunch of malarkey, code red. People know that it's gonna be cold, or rainy, or snowy. They will address accordingly when they go out. They don't need you adding to it. We'll fast forward to the summer, which is coming, as you know. We'll have a heat spell here and there, maybe 2, maybe 3. The temperature will get up to about near 100 or 100. They don't need you calling them up and telling them, don't wear your parkers. Okay? They know. So could we possibly discontinue the phone calls? Could you think about it? At least think about it, Mr. Mayor.
Give you a very straight answer.
And Mr. Dilberger, I did have numerous people thank us for the reminder to move their cars. So
Stop for a second, please. Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
As far as weather goes, between yourself and me, you who drive around in your Jeep and you're in your house or in your office or whatever, you seldom go outside other than to go to your car or get out of your car and go indoors, right? You've seen me around. You know I don't live in that manner. Who's the expert on weather between myself and you?
You.
Okay, please attempt to stifle yourself. You just keep getting people upset and there's no reason. Let's go back a second to 1665 or 6. The authorities in London did something weird. When there would be an agitator going around in the streets yelling the end of the world was here, they stopped him. They didn't let him agitate the people any further than they were. 1 out of 4 people died. They were very upset to begin with. They didn't need that. The authorities stopped them. They didn't get the people further excited. Try to keep yourself under control, please.
April, could you get Tom's phone number and have his number removed from the...
I've tried that. Several times.
We'll try again. It sounds like
Try again.
the first thing we should try and do.
Gee.
Because there are some people that like to call, like Councilwoman Nicolai, and you don't, so we'll try and accommodate you by taking you off the list.
It's not gonna happen, Brian. I tried 5 or 6 times. Yeah, we'll do it. And it never happens. Forget about it.
Thank you for your comments. Just for the record, the code red was recorded by Captain Drew Heisman, or Chief Drew Heisman. Yes, sir.
Good evening, David Schnapp, 302 C Street. I would just like to kindly ask you if you could turn the power back on the outlet that I use for my video camera. It seems this wall here, the sockets are turned off.
Thank you. He's gonna check it.
Yeah, I tested all the sockets. They all work except for the ones on this wall here.
Someone must have hit that.
Not
intentional.
I'm sure.
Definitely not. We didn't even know.
No, just
I bet you, I don't even know where the breaker is.
I'm not saying it's intentional, I'm just asking you to fix it. Thank you.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Good evening. Angela Pfeiffer, 319 Fifth Avenue. With the two developments that were just approved tonight, there's been some articles in the paper about pilot, payment in lieu of taxes, and I keep reading different things. Can you give me a brief explanation as to how that differs from them paying property taxes?
Sure. So the state legislature, years ago, passed a state statute that allows towns to provide developers with tax abatements, which means you don't pay any property taxes.
Right.
So a pilot is a payment in lieu of taxes. So it's designed to benefit both the municipality that is looking to develop property that's not so good shape, and a developer to come in and develop that property. So let's say someone was going to develop a property and the new taxes were going to be $100,000 a year. The way that gets split up, and I'm going to be a bit general, is about a third, a third, a third. A third goes to the town, a third goes to the county, a third goes to the schools. In redevelopment, most of it's mixed use. It's commercial, it's some residential, but really no real housing. So the way a pilot works is 95% of the payment goes to the town, 5% goes to the county, 0 goes to the school. So let's say again the taxes were going to be $100,000, and we do a 30-year tax abatement, and we negotiate with them. That's what the North Bears here before, and what was on the agenda for tonight is a financial agreement. So we come to a financial agreement based on pro formas, based on a whole metrics, and let's say it's $70,000. So the developer saves about $30,000, right? Mm-hmm. As a town, we get to keep 95% of $70,000, which off the top of my head is $66,500. Mm-hmm. Versus if they paid conventional taxes, we would get a third of $100,000. So a third of $100,000, about $33,000. Instead, we get $66,000.
Right.
So for the town, it works out much better. The county doesn't get really much of anything, and the school doesn't get anything either. Now, some people have complained, well, why doesn't the school get money? The school gets money from other resources we can't get money from. So I can tell you right now, as a taxpayer in Belmar, we receive $0.00 in state aid. Nothing, not a penny. The school receives, well, Mark will probably know better than me, who's on the school board, but the school receives a substantial amount. We don't have that ability. So the state legislature, again, decades ago, passes state statute, and towns like us have been taking advantage of it, and it helps us redevelop our properties that are not in very good shape, and also helps us keep the lid on property taxes moving.
Right, but if the school does, I'll use your numbers. So if there wasn't the pilot, then that property would have generated $30,000 to the school.
No.
Well, you said a third, a third, and a third.
Sorry. If there wasn't a property, if there's no pilot, it's because there's no tax abatement. If there's no tax abatement, it's because there's no development.
Well, no, but let's assume there was a development.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
The property still pays to the school. It's only on the improvements.
Right, so here's my concern. Whatever money the school is not getting, 30,000, 50,000, 100,000, let's pick a number. But if we use your number of 100,000, it would have been 30,000. So if the school's now not getting that $30,000, doesn't that burden now fall on the remaining property owners in Belmar?
No, you want to try to explain?
Sure, so I think it's important for you to understand why a municipality would enter into a pilot. I think that's what you're driving at, because you say, describe.
Oh, I get why they do it, because it's going to encourage the development. I get that.
Correct.
I just want to know who's making
the
up the lost dollars.
So if you're going to develop a big project like this, you almost always finance it. So if you finance something and you agree to loan a certain amount of money and build something,
and someone, the bank or a hard money lender, is taking a risk on you. You build your project, and then the tax assessor comes and says it's worth, the improvements are worth X, and you pay taxes on X.
Right.
That's a huge uncertainty for a developer who's going to a bank to say, here's my plan, I'm going to build X, Y, and Z, I'm going to rent it for this amount of money, and the bank says, well, what are your property taxes?
Right.
And you can't tell them. So the pilot gives not only a financial incentive, perhaps like that $30,000, it provides a certainty to the developer so that they can go to the bank and say, well, I have this financial agreement with the town, and this is exactly what I'm going to pay, so that the bank can evaluate whether the project is viable, or they can pay their mortgage or whatever the construction mortgage or pay back their balloon payment. Now, with respect to the specific question that you asked, the payment in lieu of taxes it's extremely simple. It's an agreement between the town and a property owner as to what they will pay on the improvements on their property when it's redeveloped. And it's authorized by the redevelopment law in 2013, which specifically precludes the school from deriving that revenue. So it's not a borough choice as to whether they get the revenue or not. It's a matter of state law. They don't. If the legislature change that rule to have the pilot go 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, that would be the case. But the only tool available to the municipalities at this point is this pilot agreement. So getting to the specific question that you asked just most recently, as to whether the property tax payers of Belmar bear a more significant burden because of a pilot agreement, the answer is no, because it's a zero-sum game. So you have a tax levy here at the borough for municipal services, and there's a tax levy at the school for school services. So whether you get the same tax bill, you get one tax bill, or four of them actually in the corner. That tax bill is the same based upon the budget of the town and the budget of the schools. That revenue that comes in just offsets the municipal side of your tax levy more, and it would be the same difference. It's the same money because you pay the schools and the town. So whether the town gives you $70,000 less, or the school gives you $30,000 less, and the borough gives you $30,000 less, in the example the mayor laid out, the taxpayer in Belmar actually benefits by $3,500 under the pilot agreement, because otherwise they would have sent $333,000, pardon, $33,333 to the county. That stays in the borough. You get a net of 70. And I don't know if you're following me or not, but it's a zero-sum game. The only real complaint you have, and why it's a matter of good policy, as the mayor pointed out, is if the development disproportionately burdens the school district, and then you don't provide them with the money, then that's a different animal. So you very rarely see municipalities entering into pilot agreements to build 10-story apartment buildings with three-bedroom units. That would generate school children. It would burden the school board. But in the case that the mayor is describing, it's in the commercial district, I believe.
Right. Or another example would be single-family homes. If we're building 10 single-family homes.
Right. Single-family homes is the single biggest generator of school children.
Okay, so let me just back something up. So we have 80 additional units being built. So there could be school children in there, okay?
Well, I'd imagine they did a demographic study in order to enter into the agreement. So I mean,
well, but here's the
depends
thing.
on what kind of units.
Yeah, but I don't think we want to start to establish a precedent that says people don't have to pay into the schools because chances are they're not going to have kids, because I don't have any kids in the school system, and I pay a boatload of property taxes.
Correct, but you're
and my money goes. So I don't think we
want
want
to.
to.
It's not a chicken and egg argument. You have, or a cart with one horse. You don't have the tax revenue absent the pilot. So the place sits as an abandoned property that just sits there and doesn't get redeveloped because the borough enters into pilot, or the developer enters into pilot, and there's very specific criteria under the statute. And they're only really used in circumstances where, but for the pilot, the person wouldn't be building the improvement.
So you're assuming that without the pilot they wouldn't build, which we don't know.
Well,
we don't know.
There's been every pilot agreement in the statute requires a financial analysis of what the developer is going to do is true. And it requires them to turn over their financial agreements and to be reviewed by the borough's professionals to verify the fact that this is a necessary thing. And part of the ordinance, I don't know if you have the opportunity to read it, in the redevelopment zone, is that there is a need for economic benefit in the borough.
Right.
So in the circumstances describing, and I understand the arguments you're making, and I just actually read an article today, I think it was one of the Antwerp Press about it, or another newspaper, but that doesn't take into account the fact that but for the pilot, the development wouldn't exist. So the additional, you're not losing, the notion that you're losing tax revenue is a misnomer because you don't have that tax revenue to begin with without allowing the project to go forward. It's a tool to allow it.
If there is no development, then I would agree with you. I think what's what's somewhat of a gray area is we don't know if there would be a development without the tax incentive, okay? I don't think they need a pilot just to go to the bank. I'm a loan officer, so I know that you can project what the taxes are. We do loans under construction all the time. And on single-family homes, you project what the taxes are going to be, so it's not necessarily.
Single-family homes has great comparable sales, or you're talking about something, I mean, we're talking about a development that really doesn't have any precedent
I
in
think
town.
the
It's two
point,
different animals.
I think my concern is a precedent that was started to set. I love the idea that the town is getting more money. I think I just want to bring to the council that moving forward, I think we need to take this into consideration, that we're adding 80 more residents, 100 more residents, 30 more, whatever it is. Ultimately, there will be more of a burden on the schools. And with, I mean, I don't know how many homeowners there are in Belmar, 2,000?
There's more than that, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but as I mentioned before, the population in Belmar now is less than it was in 2000.
Right.
The number of children in Belmar Elementary School now is less than it was in 2000. The real expense, from my understanding, in education isn't the number of children. It's the number of children that are either classified or need some special assistance along the way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's really where the costs come in. And our school, the public school, again, Mark can speak better to this, they're legally obligated. So if you have a child, right, if you have a child and they have a special need, and the only place that's going to satisfy their special need is a special school in Princeton.
Mm-hmm. We have
And
to
then
pay.
they have to get bused out to Princeton and back every day. And they may have to have an aide with them the whole time. Legally, the school has to pay for that. The parents fight for it, like any parent would. I don't begrudge them that. But the cost of that could be $80,000.
But you're making,
$100,000. And so those are, so when people say, oh, there's more school children, it's going to be more cost. That is not true.
but Mr. Mayor, you're making my point, because those costs will continue to increase, and the burden is falling on fewer property owners in Belmar. To your point, there's fewer property owners, there's fewer, I'm just saying, moving forward, I think it's something that we need to think about. On one hand, I love the idea that there's more money going to the town. On the other hand, if the school now comes up short, that's going to fall on 2,000 property owners?
Right, well, then, let me just clarify, because maybe I apologize. We have less residents, year-round residents. We have more property owners today than we did in 2000.
Oh, okay.
Think about something like the Barton, not far from where you live,
Yeah.
right? That used to be one property owner, now there are 4.
Yes.
But we have, just over the last 17 years, a lot of the rental properties became so valuable that people sold them.
Mm-hmm.
The people who bought them fixed them up, and now they use them as a second home.
Mm-hmm.
That person's not here year-round.
Right.
I believe that we need more year-round residents.
I agree.
Not less. And one way to do that, without, to support the central business district, is literally to build them right there. And there's a whole new generation of people, and this may sound odd to some of us, who want to live in apartments. They don't want to own a house yet.
Yes, correct.
There's a whole demographic, generation of millennials that, this is the type of stuff they're looking for. So developers are trying to build towards that, as opposed to, hey, let's build more mansions out in Howell or Jackson. You see more people that want to build in places like Jersey City or Newark.
Absolutely.
Not that we're Jersey City, Newark, but I'm just saying that's more of what they're looking for. So again, our population is down. This will help us bring it up. Our enrollment at the school is down, I think, 17% when I looked at the numbers versus 2000. I understand your concerns. And again, if like Mark said, if you have one child that costs $100,000, what if you have 5 of those? Legally, we're obligated to provide that. That's half a $1 million. But that's sort of the luck of the draw, not the number of
Right,
children.
but that's $500,000 falling on a very small handful of property owners. I'm just saying, moving forward, I think it's something that we just need to be mindful of before we give away too much. Maybe we need to think of, because ultimately, it's going to, we're all homeowners here, so it's all going to fall on us anyway.
Can I also mention, though, that we as taxpayers benefit from the pilot? Like, I know the 10th App would be getting $76,000 a year from them, and then it'll increase for the percentages that go up over 30 years.
I'm
So
saying,
whether
I get
it's
that.
money from a development that's not a pilot or it's a pilot, we just, taxpayers are benefiting greatly from that.
Yes, but then we might also have to make up the shortfall on the schools. I'm just saying it's
I
something.
think directly to the question, there's actually, you can go on, Rutgers does study this, there's standards. And you can actually see there's numbers assigned by average and through extra tables about what different types of housing, the number of school children that they produce. So you can imagine that a one-bedroom apartment is 0.1, or something very extremely low, because you're typically not talking about some of these children. Once you add that third bedroom
Right.
to a development, that's when the numbers go from decimal points to multiples potentially. You got two kids sharing a room, and parents in an office.
Right.
You can think of the scenarios, and obviously once you get to a single-family house, it's different animals. So I think with the judgment that you're seeking to make, I think you have to judge the project about whether it will overburden the school. The pilot is a good idea, based on how many school children it's expected to generate, or what kind of units they are.
Right, but I think a town like Belmar is a little bit different. I mean, I live 2 blocks away from Jen, and if you, on my block, there's probably the smallest house is a 3-bedroom house, and there's not a single kid on our block. So so I think our town is a little bit different. I'm just saying, moving forward, I think it's something to think about. I just want to make sure that we're not being a little bit too short-sighted and saying, hey, we just got $75,000 for the town, but now we just incurred a $50,000 school deficit that's going to fall on 2,000 property owners. Just
Right, but remember that in that example, that school deficit could happen tomorrow from someone who lives on Fifth Avenue.
Absolutely, they're not related.
So I would tell you this, if you're a property tax paying homeowner or business owner in Belmar, you want us to do more pilots. Financially, you want us to do more pilots.
Mr. Mayor, after the pilot program is over, does it go back on the tax rolls like normal?
Yeah, but isn't that 30 years down the road?
Yeah, 30 years down.
So Riverwalk, which I understand was supposed to be rentals, but then they turned them into condos, right? Isn't that what the developer said at the last meeting?
Yeah, they're condos. That one, I gotta do research
So
on.
now those homeowners are not paying any property taxes?
No.
If it's a 30-year deal?
They'd be paying into the pilot. They're paying. They're paying. They're not getting. It's not a tax abatement where they don't pay taxes. They're paying either a payment in lieu of taxes, or they're paying taxes.
But
The people that don't pay taxes, St. Rose. St. Rose doesn't pay taxes.
But
They don't pay pilot.
if Riverwalk got a pilot program, because originally it was going to be rentals, and then the developer turned them into condos, and now there's a 30-year tax abatement on that, a pilot, those are 2 and 3 bedroom units, those people are not paying property taxes, so no money is going to the schools?
Those folks are paying the pilot. I would tell you that, and you can go by them, most of those are second homes for people. One of the things that we've noticed are, if you do condos, people are very comfortable buying a condo as a second home. For apartments, no one really has an apartment as a second home. It's really, really rare. An apartment's gonna be owner occupied, which means the person's gonna be here year round. Which again, I think we need more year-round people in town, not less. I think we need more children in town, not less. But a pilot, and Greg sort of explained it, for the tax-paying public in Belmont, a pilot is better than conventional property taxes for development going forward. By the way, great questions.
We can agree to
Great questions. And thank you very much.
Just to be clear, no one's getting a free rent. They pay either pilot or taxes.
Well,
There's
I
I
understand they pay taxes, it's just that their taxes get divided up differently than my property taxes, correct?
Under the pilot, that's correct.
Under the pilot program. So if Riverwalk is under a pilot, all that property tax, none of it's going to the school. And those are 2 and 3 bedroom units.
The pilot itself, right, but in that case,
For the next 30 years.
I don't believe that property generates one student, because most of them are second homes.
Yeah, you know what?
They-
That's not the criteria we want to use, because then nobody on my block should be paying for it.
No, but that's a good point. If you said, hey, I want to build, if the developers came in and said, hey, I want to build 5 new single-family homes, I do not think it'd be appropriate to give that person a tax abatement in the pilot. I don't. In fact, state law wouldn't allow us to.
I'm not.
Redevelopment zone.
It's unfortunately, Mr. Northgate.
Yeah, it's true. The guy was smarter than the rest of us.
I'm not sure that the pilot would be applicable to for sale units. I'm not comfortable giving you a legal opinion on
He went to
that.
BCA.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that the size, I get, generally speaking, there may not be kids in a one-bedroom, but there could. Riverwalk has two and 3 bedrooms. I've got a 3-bedroom house, or some say, well, according to the tax assessor, I have a 6-bedroom house, which I don't, so we have to fight that, but I don't have any kids. Never had any kids in Belmar,
On a
so.
side note, did you file your appeal?
We just found out about it. Yeah, Mark just called up today, but anyway, that's a separate issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Yes, sir. Yeah, that was good.
My name is Steve Bloom, 1104 A Street, about the turf, the artificial grass. I do have the artificial grass, and my name wasn't on the list because mine's in the backyard. So now, if you're gonna pass the ordinance, and you're gonna say that most of these people, my fellow turfers, have it in the front yard, and their neighbors wanna have it in their front yards. So now there's gonna be an ordinance saying they can't do it. Does that mean they're gonna have to apply for a variance to go ahead and put it in their front yard and deprive a person who installed mine, who's here tonight, deprive him of his business? He's a professional, he does it right. And I can go for a variance for my house too, so I know what it's like to go for variance. So are these people gonna have to go ahead and get a variance to go ahead and put artificial grass in front of their grid on their lawn to make it beautiful as compared to the neighbors? Some of them aren't that great.
Right. I mean, I will tell you, I think there's a bit of an exaggeration when we talk about some of the neighbors aren't that great. Again, I went to your house, I did go around your neighbors. Some of your neighbors have very nice lawns, they're just dormant, it's March. To your point of depriving someone the ability to put it in there and depriving their business. Right now, there is in our zoning, as I mentioned before, you're prohibited from putting a 6-foot vinyl fence in the front yard.
That's for fire reasons.
But you could also make the argument, well, all right, you can't put a 5-foot vinyl fence in the front yard. You could make the argument, well, that deprives a vinyl fence guy from doing business.
But you can put a 4-foot fence.
Right, but what if I want a 5-foot? A 5-foot fence is more money, I can make more money doing a 5-foot fence. My point is,
The reason is
town,
for a fire code, so they don't have to use ladders to jump over the fence, that's the reason.
but it's also for aesthetics. The town can limit what people have in their, on their property. We're permitted to do that through zoning. They could go to the zoning board, they could get a variance. People get variances all the time, if they make a compelling case for it, sure.
So besides having the extra expense of putting the grass in, which is not cheap, now they have to go for an extra expense of going for a variance too. Most of the times you have to hire a lawyer or a landscape architect. So I'm just.
You're absolutely right. To your answer, you're right. The person would have to go before the zoning board for a variance.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Just remember, any ordinance we have that pertains to zoning, someone can always go to the zoning board and make a compelling case and get a variance from that ordinance. No matter what the ordinance is. I mean, we could say, that property is zoned single family. And they can go to the zoning board and say, I want to put in a 3-family property. The zoning board believes there's a compelling case, they can get awarded the variance and build a 3-family unit there. And that's what the zoning board is for, to trump essentially what we do as a council in creating zoning ordinances. Yes, ma'am.
Robin Monty, 11719, and you've been to my house regarding the turf.
Trampled on your lawn.
You have trampled on the lawn.
Sorry.
I understand that letters went out to 9 homes. We did not get a letter. So I need to be sure that my home is on your list of homes that will be grandfathered.
I will tell you that I'm just guessing. Now, our code enforcement drove all around town, and there were some homes, right, that you could miss.
Absolutely.
My guess is they missed yours because they just thought yours was natural grass, is my guess.
How do I ensure that we are on the list of the homes that will be grandfathered, because ours has been in 6 or 7 years?
We'll make a point of it, but
I don't think we're gonna forget you at this point.
That's great, when you're all here, but,
the guy you came with.
Well, you would have your documentation about when you install it, right?
yes, we do.
And that's all you need is the date of that. That's all you would see.
So there will be no letters going out?
We don't have an ordinance yet.
We don't have an ordinance.
Everything is being decided on the parameters of the ordinance.
So first off, we don't have an ordinance, but second off, the letters we would send out saying that we're not gonna take any enforcement action, the only people we would send those to were the ones that we sent the first letter to.
Right, and we're not part of that.
Right, so you're not part of it.
But we do have the turf, so how are we protected going forward?
Pretty good public record that yours was installed prior to the
Yes. I walked on it.
So that's all we get? That's it, just, you walk on it, that's it?
My footprints right on it. No, I mean, you know, I don't know how to assure you, I guess we can say it on the record.
The zoning officer can send a letter saying that
Yeah, that makes you
this
happy,
was
right?
existing prior to the date of the ordinance. I mean, that makes it right.
Does that make it more
Yeah,
comfortable?
absolutely.
That's perfectly good.
Okay, thank you.
Any comments, questions? Yes, sir.
I want to be quick. I'm Jason Rusak, 408 Main Street, Forever Lawn, Shores into the Grass. First, I want to thank you all, especially for taking the time and doing all the research and presenting this ordinance. We've been in business for 10 years here. The City of Seaside Heights, and this building has synthetic turf. One of the things that you mentioned is limiting it to the backyard. The thing I've noticed, and it might not be typical in Belmar, but the backyard is typically larger square footage than say the front yard. So if you're trying to feed the wildlife or produce more oxygen, that doesn't make too much sense. But I don't know if that's the case with Belmar. So that's the main thing. The other thing is, are you considering approved vendors, like the New Jersey SDA, which is the School District Association? You have to be an approved vendor in order to do it. So I can make the cheapest turf look better than the most expensive turf. It really all comes down to installation and techniques and the way it's done.
We're probably not able to limit vendors.
We were going to stay away from, we're not a homeowners association with government.
Well, no, SDA is the school.
No, I just mean typically when you see that sort of thing, like limited to these paint chips at the store, so
Well,
that's
no.
always a homeowners association. We don't really have the power to do that.
No, what he wants to limit is the vendors that can install it.
Well, no, I'm not even limited to vendors. No, I'm not limited.
Pre-qualify them?
Exactly, like people.
I don't think that the administrative, I mean, as a municipal government, I don't think we can justify administrative.
Because I just know like with the SDA, which is a, New Jersey government, you have to get approved. I didn't know if that was the deal. And then you should also consider that turf is constantly evolving. Like 10 years ago, it wasn't in the ordinance probably because we weren't at the third generation synthetic turf yet. So things change, and for the better.
I think it's just in the ordinance with the permitting. I mean, I think you have to come with a permit, and you come in, and what you have is new, it doesn't fit the ordinance, and that's gonna be brought to the attention of either the zoning board or here.
But the ordinance will have minimum standards. So as things progress, it'll get better than minimum standards.
Right, we'll be able to figure that out as someone comes in with a new thing with their permit, we'll be able to say, okay, we need to update our ordinance because something new has come out, just like we do with, everything else that came out over the years.
And my understanding has been that it's hard to get ordinances changed once they're in place.
Well, I mean, the idea is, even if the new product is improved, it's going to at least meet the minimum requirements of the ordinance, so I don't think you have a problem.
Yeah, if you like limit yarns and things like that, there's mentions of different types and yarns, and I would like to see a copy. I just thank you guys, because it's going to set a precedent, and we need something like this, because other towns, usually it's up to the town engineer to consider whether it's allowed or not, and that and a good model ordinance in New Jersey for me to refer to when people ask. That's for precedent. Thank you.
And again, if anyone wants a copy of what we discussed in the workshop, just leave your, people will volunteer to hang out for a few minutes, to take your email to you. All right, seeing no other public comment, I'll make a motion to close the public portion and adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
All right. Thank you, everybody.